What's up, world? This is Mike Lang. We're back. We're back, Webs, and this is AI on AI. And today we're talking about practice. Should be an interesting conversation. Hopefully you're alive and well out there. If you're not, hopefully things get better. If you're doing well, hopefully things stay great. And we're gonna have a conversation tonight with the homie Webs. Say hello to the people, Webs.
Hello.
Indeed. And we're going to talk about utilizing some of the AI tools in practice to help automations, to help simplify your life, all that wonderful stuff as an educator. And the reason why this episode is called Practice, Allen Iverson went on a very famous rant in which he talked about, he was questioned as to why he was skipping practice. And that questioning intimated that he wasn't someone who was giving his all, who was all in for the team, et cetera, et cetera. And that rant was a result of actually a friend passing away and him skipping practice in order to deal with that particular situation. If you read when we blog this, there'll be a link to the actual, to an article that kind of goes through this entire saga. Super interesting thing. Like, it was painted as like this villain, this bad guy, this person who doesn't want to work. And very much Allen Iverson embodied the every person, hard work and dedication kind of mantra that's necessary to be successful in any vocation, I think. And Iverson took it very personally, that people questioned his dedication and whatnot, and that's where that kind of rant came from. It's a very interesting article to converse about if you have a chance to read it. That being the case, we want to see what AI does in practice in people's classrooms, right? There's lots of tools that are available now that when we start to talk, our canine friends are always welcome in the broadcast. We always have a situation in which right now AI Webs is getting this stigma, I guess, of it's cheating, right? We don't want students to use it because it's cheating. It's not allowing them to do certain things. And how might we instead utilize AI to reduce the mundanities of life and therefore give students more opportunities to think both metacognitively about how things are working and thinking creatively as well as about problem solving. And again, we're going to start our tip-off show with Webs today. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about what the word automation means to you?
I can. I think I have to get a ball from underneath the china cabinet before I
Oh,
do. So give me 2 seconds.
no worries, no worries. And while she's getting the ball from the cabinet, underneath the china cabinet, um, one of the things as an educator for as I've been one that is super, it's kind of painstaking is the amount of minutia that a teacher has to navigate in order to get things accomplished during class, whether it's you know attendance or checking papers or making sure that certain forms are turned in on time. Like the minutia can be very, very overwhelming in a classroom, and there are ways that we can utilize the technologies that we now have in order to not totally eliminate a lot of those tasks. Some tasks have to be done, but to minimize those things. Go ahead, Webster. Your definition of automation.
Yeah, so like for me it's essentially having a robot do the thing for me. So it's taking the human point and click or manual labor, manual steps out of a task.
And can you go a little deeper in terms of give us an example of what you mean by what you just said? Like, give us an example, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was first starting out with figuring out automation generally, it was really hard for me to think of specific ways that I would use it because I wasn't yet used to seeing the patterns in my own behavior. So,
Okay.
like, for example, one of the things at work that I use automation for is every 2 weeks, it's basically a meeting, but like we call it a sprint review. And we present, like, hey, this is what my team has worked on for the last 2 weeks. And at the end of that, we send out an email that says, hey, thanks for attending to all the people who are on the invite. Thanks for attending. If you want to watch the recording, here's where you go to watch the recording. I
Mm-hmm.
figured out that the recordings live on a the same page always. So all I really need to do is send those people a link to the page and remind them that it's there. So I ended up setting up automation that at the same time every other Friday would send out an email to all the people that were on that list and say, "Hey, thank you for attending. Here's a link to the recording." So that meant I didn't have to find the recording, get the recording link, add it into the email, do all these other steps. I could set it up so I just like automatically that email goes out and I don't have to think about it. Another good example is I noticed that when I would get like tagged on certain things at work, I would get an email for it, but I don't spend a lot of time in my email. I spend most of my time in Teams. So in order to make that more accessible and like kind of put it in my way, I set up an automation that when I got an email where I was tagged on something, it would send me a message in Teams and say, "Hey, you were tagged on this thing. You probably want to go look at it. Here's a link to it." So it kind of like it's sort of like forwarding, but forwarding it to Teams instead of like another email. And that's kind of one of my guiding principles when it comes to automation is I want information in my way. I don't want to have to go look for it. Because from a learning sciences perspective, we know that there is a cost to context switching. So every time I have to switch to a different program or think about a different problem or navigate a different UI, it's sucking up my working memory space and unfortunately like that is a limited resource. So the number of times, the amount that I can limit that, the better, so that I can expend that mental energy on problem solving instead of really mundane things like switching over to my email and then navigating to another program and all that kind of stuff.
Super interesting. What I heard from you is that automation has multiple benefits. It has a peace of mind effect, right? Where that meeting that you went to where you need to send the email that telling people the recording was up, I don't have to remember to do that. Peace of mind, I can go my own way. That's going to be taken care of. Everyone says thank you, and we keep it moving. also has a situation of convenience, right? Things that were inconvenient are now convenient for the in terms of what you just talked about, the learning sciences and the putting things in your way. I am moving things from not being in my purview to being in my purview. Therefore, I can take advantage of them and handle them, right? Um, because if they weren't, and I'm just putting this in my own kind of phraseology here, I'm thinking about as a teacher, you're working all day, you're running around with kindergartners, whatever you're doing, and at the end of the day, you have this mountain of emails that someone expected you to somehow get to while you were in the full throes of teaching. And now this person wants you to respond to XYZ. They want, have you call this parent. Well, as a someone who's been on active and on their feet the entire day or running around or whatever it is, you don't have time to do those things. Oh, and by the way, you have to like schedule your doctor's appointments or your therapy sessions or whatever. Like it's a lot of things to have to be responsible for. So being able to automate some of that is probably lessens your anxiety as well in terms of am I forgetting to do all the things that I have to do? To your point, and you mentioned learning sciences. Like, can you go a little bit more deeply into? First of all, can you explain why you know so much about learning sciences first, and then go a little bit more deeply into how automation might support some of the things you've learned?
Yeah, sure. Also, I would add to that there is the reduction of like human error. So forgetting is a big one, right? Like we're human, we make mistakes. That's just kind of how it is. We forget to schedule that same thing that we schedule every 2 weeks. So if you set it up once, like it's like the old infomercial, you set it and forget it. If you set it and forget it, then you don't have to worry about missing it. Um, why do I know about learning sciences? So I am currently in my fourth year of a PhD in learning sciences with a specialization in technology. And the kind of objective of learning sciences is to look at how can you optimize the environment that you build for learning. How can you, what are ways you can improve it? What are ways that you can um, use the tools at your disposal and ensure that you're fitting the right tool to the right problem when it comes to designing for learning. And as far as like some of the ways that automation helps, so there's this concept of cognitive load. I'm sure a lot of teachers will be familiar with cognitive load. And basically, the idea that your short term memory is limited, and that's where you kind of do all of your in the moment work in your brain, taking things out of long term memory, reassembling them to problem solve, things like that. So, uh, but that's a limited resource. So you want to like minimize the amount that you're taxing it for no reason. So extraneous load is what we call that. You want to minimize the amount of extraneous load that you're putting on your working memory. And one of the ways that you can do that is by not having to context switch. So every time you switch from one program to another, you're having to shift in your brain, okay, where are the controls? How do I execute on this process? How do I do that process? What is this process? I have to recall that process. Then I have to apply this new information to doing this process for this specific um, thing that I'm doing. So, like if you're writing an email, say you open up Gmail, you're going to write an email, but you're writing an email to a specific person about a specific issue. So while your brain is saying, okay, I know the procedure for writing an email, but now I need to plug in all these variables for writing an email. And imagine if you had one program where you could just do all the things, right? That would be fantastic. I could write my emails, I could write my lesson plans, I could do absolutely everything in one big chat box or something. Um, that is going to reduce your cognitive load because you're now you have automaticity around the UI that you're working with, the user interface where the buttons are and where the boxes are. That's now become automatic, and you don't have to expend energy thinking about that. But every time you switch to a new program, and this would be true of adults as well as students, every time you switch to a new program, your brain has to reorient around, okay, where are the controls to do this or that or the other. And that is what causes an increase in extraneous load, which reduces the amount of space you have to actually solve problems. And so automation frees up a lot of those resources.
And also, I mean, 'cause you're talking about minimizing frustration, minimizing confusion, minimizing the amount of time it takes to onboard into this new process, right? And really being clear as to, is this the student's best efforts in this particular area, or is this person still trying to learn the nuances of how to actually navigate this particular thing while they're trying to learn the material that I'm trying to help them cover as well, right? If we were to do school. And so
Yeah,
I think, go ahead, Webs.
actually, the mention of onboarding. So some of the automation I've set up at work isn't even for me. It's like for my developers. So it makes it easier for them to see when things are changing in certain code repositories that could potentially impact them. And that kind of automation is really helpful for reducing the effort to onboarding. So they don't have to go manually search for, hey, has there been a change to this code? It will just automatically pop up in a Teams channel for them, so they know, hey, here's a little alert that that something has changed in this repository that you may need to be aware of. So I think that's another powerful place. You mentioned onboarding, like to make sure information comes up so that people don't have to go in search of it, and it lessens the effort they have to go through to kind of weed out what's important and what isn't.
I think if you just want to, as you were talking, what I started thinking about was notifications on my phone, right? Ding, we've got a sale on. Ding, this is an article that, based on the articles that you usually read, an article that you might be familiar with. Ding, artist that you like has a new single out. Like, I don't have to search for that information because the information is being catered to me so that I'm more efficient. I don't have to remember that Layla's album just came out over the weekend because I get this ding. Layla's one of your favorite artists. She just dropped an album. You might be interested in it, or it's catered for you, right? This very, very much something that, just to be honest with you, Webb, scared the daylights out of me at the beginning was like this, you know, this thing knows me well enough that's able to pick out things for me based on my behaviors. But like the convenience of it is kind of fascinating, right? You know, like literally the number of, for those who don't know this, I am a audiophile. I have my headphones on 27 hours a day generally. Um, Lots of music. My parents listened to lots of music, but I never was a musician. I could not play any instruments. And that's always been like, if I could go back in time, perhaps I would have explored that. But it is very interesting, given my Apple Music history, the nexuses that it creates, saying that you really like this artist. Have you heard of this one? I'm like, I absolutely I heard that. And just these webs that it builds. And you're like, man, this is my childhood that it's recreating for me, or these are songs that I really liked. It's recreating for me by just looking at behaviors that I've demonstrated, and how much easier it is for me to find songs that I want to listen to, put playlists together, all these things that make me a more efficient worker, or a more efficient thinker, and a more efficient creator. So really, 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 it's very interesting.
So it's interesting you mentioned that because there is this theory, and there's a lot of theories in education, but in learning science, one of them is connectionism, and this idea that we've gotten to a point where I think it's connectionism. We've gotten to a point where our brains can no longer like hold all the potential information and connections that are out there. So the way that we like store information at times is in other people and in other resources,
Very
right?
true.
So yeah, like, and I guess tying that back to the whole AI conversation, I think one of the benefits of AI as well is it can search everywhere thoroughly in seconds. And if you're leaving it up to you to remember certain things, um, you will likely forget because we don't have the methodical way of going through everything that a computer does. But connectionism is like, so in ways that connectionism would manifest are like, for example, you save things in the cloud, right? You put it in Google Drive, or you put it in iCloud, or you put it in OneDrive. You have your music web networks, like you were just mentioning, where it connects things and it reminds you, oh yeah, I really liked that artist when I was a kid. I had completely forgotten about them. Or you store things in other people, or in your to-do apps. Like it's becoming an extension of yourself. Like if I needed to know something about music and I had to ask a person because a computer couldn't figure out my question, you would be the first person I would go to. So it's really fascinating seeing that manifest and how like I was messing around with a custom chat GPT bot earlier and I did something like generate a questionnaire for uh parent teacher conferences. And it had some really interesting questions that it generated that I wouldn't have thought about. And so that kind of got me thinking in another direction. But again, like computers can scan like the whole of knowledge essentially in like a few seconds.
Well, that's another benefit of automation is that to what you just said, because it's going to lead us into our next kind of phase of this conversation. The thing that I really find intriguing about chatbots and a lot of the tools that we use to automate tasks is, especially the GPTs and whatnot, are the questions that I would have never thought to ask, or the information that I would never have uncovered just on my own, right? And it's similar again to notification on your phone. Great, so and so artist has an album out. I'm just going to use Apple Music because that's the service that I utilize. Great. Here's the song. I listen to the song, 5 million times or whatever it is. I start scrolling down the page and look at the artists and stuff. At the very bottom of the page, it has similar artists, right? And so now you have this thing where, okay, here are other avenues, other vehicles that might be in the same universe of this particular artist that I am not able to remember every artist who's ever made a song in the history of the world. If I'm listening to, like, for some reason I got into a Jerry Reed rabbit hole a couple days ago. Like I've been listening to Jerry Reed nonstop for the last couple days. For those who are not country music fans, Jerry Reed is so. Quick Jerry Reed story. My relationship with Jerry Reed. When I was a kid, I used to always go to thrift stores. Like we'd go to Goodwill. Like that was our like extravagance. Go to the mall. It was going to the Goodwill, South Dakota Avenue, at this large store, and we would go in, and I want to say I'm 7, 8 years old, and I stopped like looking at toys totally. It was books and records. And so I would go through the and they had this like huge record collection of just all kind of stuff. And I'd go into this area and look at the album covers and look at the names and then turn on the back and look at what the tracks were called or whatever. And that's how I learned who Herb Alpert was, Chris Christopherson, and Jerry Reed. So Jerry Reed's album is there. When you're hot, you're hot. You've probably heard this song before, but if you're hot, you're hot. When you're hot, you're hot. If you're not, you're not. La 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 la. So he tells the story of him gambling at the beginning, cops finding him and arresting him, and then being dragged in front of the judge. It's a hilarious song. He sings in his very like Cajun yokel voice. He has a beautiful singing voice. So again, if you get into Jerry Reed's music, beautiful singing voice. But that song in particular is one of my favorite songs of all time. Anyway, so get into this Jerry Reed rabbit hole, and it starts talking about these other like country artists that I've never heard of before. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let me listen to this person. Oh, okay, this is a bop. And I listen to this. Oh, I don't really like that. And really be able to bring stuff to me that I can taste little tidbits of and say, yep, I dig that. Give me more of that. Or I don't like this. Don't give me any more of that. And the work that I'm doing is satisfying. It's fun. It's exploratory. It's not painful. It's not me digging like holes in the ground. It's really being catered to. And I think we mistake automation for cheating because it's fun. It's easy. It's things being given. But at the same time, you're evaluating on a very high level your own tastes. And also, I always think about this. Who would I recommend this artist to in my network? Like, I know that Webb's like da 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 da. Cool. So if Webb's would have asked me, yo, needing new music. Like, who would I suggest Jerry read the webs? Now I have this evaluation process I need to be. Then I'm the chat bot, right? I'm really looking at the situation. What do I know about webs? What are her previous music proclivities that she's demonstrated? What are things that she? So it's this. What I don't want teachers specifically to like avoid webs really is this, like, because it's easy to be placed in front of you that it somehow doesn't have value. And that's a lot of the conversations, at least, that I've had with teachers. And when we walk them through stuff, it's like, oh, I can see why that's valuable. Absolutely. It's kind of just demonstrating that situation. Go ahead, Webs.
Oh, he sings Eastbound and Down. I love that song.
Yes, it's an album called Eastbound and Down.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, that's from what doggone series is that from? It's the
The
theme song
Smokey,
to
Smokey and the
Smokey the Bandit.
Bandit.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I used to watch those with my dad when I was a kid.
yeah. So
Eastbound and Down. I
the
don't want to get our broadcast taken off.
I mentioned bots. Can you explain to us what a bot is and what the function of a bot is?
Yeah, a bot is essentially just like a computer program that is usually over text, although they also have audio that will respond to you talking to it. Sometimes they're set up, if AI is integrated, they may be able to like generate responses based on prior programming. Some like the older bots were like pre-programmed responses. So like I have one of those for our support department where they can do a couple different tasks with it. Um, and also ask it like questions about our products and stuff.
Mm,
Uh, but essentially, it's a text, usually text. Like I said, there are audio, but usually it's you type to it, and you might say something like, uh, we've encountered. I'm sure lots of people have encountered them on like websites now. That seems like the new thing is put a bot on your website so it'll answer questions like, "Hey, I'm having a problem logging in," or "This feature isn't working correctly," or whatever. And that tends to be like the entry point into customer support for a lot of companies nowadays. But
mm,
that's basically all a bot is. It's a computer program that has a set. Like if you ever used macros on like Excel, it's that's a similar idea. Like it's this repetitive, pre-programmed um, set of tasks that it can do,
but
and you interact with it by typing to it.
you've got a automation that, when we first started, like, playing with the phones and stuff like that, you were really big into shortcuts on your
Yeah,
iPhone and
I
whatnot, right?
still am.
Okay, so explain what shortcuts are on, and I'm assuming Android has a similar product or similar
Yeah,
process. Can
there's
you
a lot of them out there. Yeah, go ahead.
explain what that is?
Oh, it's just basically same idea, like little short repetitive programs that like assist you in doing different tasks. So like, for example, like I had a time period, well, I kind of still do, where the internet would go out quite frequently. And so what I did was I made a little shortcut on my phone, and then I put a button for it on my home screen. When I tapped the button, it would ask me a series of questions like, did the internet go out or did it come back? And any notes that I wanted to add, and then it would record the date and time, and then it would add it to a note on my phone. And so then I ended up with this perfect recording of, here the internet went out, date time, the internet came back, date time, internet went out, date time, internet came back, date time. And that way I don't have to like go into my, and it may sound like a very small thing, because what's the alternative, right? I have to find my notes app, I have to find the note that it's supposed to go to, I have to remember what all the categories are, I have to record, look at my watch, record the date and time. By taking out some of those things, one, I'm reducing context because I'm going back to the same place every time. I
Hmm.
don't have to swipe down, search for notes, go to my search bar, search for that note, try and remember what is the name of that note. Did I call it, um, you know, internet down? Did I call it internet out? Like those those tiny little things all add up. It's like death by a thousand paper cuts. And so by being able to just press a button, answer 2 questions, and then I can move on with my life, it minimizes the disruption and it minimizes the amount of extraneous load. Another one, a really complicated one I have, is for when I'm packing for a trip. I hit the little button and it asks me a bunch of questions like, what kind of trip is it? Am I going back to visit my family in Michigan? Is this some other trip? Is it warm weather? Is it cold weather? Do I want to take all my electronics or just some of them? And by ticking off all those things, it puts together a checklist of things that I want to bring with me, because it's a repetitive action. Like when I normally go on a trip, I ask myself all these questions, and in order to assemble this list of things, all I'm doing is putting that into the shortcut so that it can ask me the questions, and it does all those things a lot faster. Like the shortcuts app is going to be able to write out all the things that I want on that list way faster than I can.
But also, it's a situation in which, while it's top of mind, you have essentially engineered this tool so that you don't forget that I need to pack an extra toothbrush when I go to Cancun for whatever reason it happens, or whatever the deal is, right? And so, again, to your point, the cognitive load that is necessary in traveling can be stressful, right? Because you're worried about leaving things. But in a non-stressful environment, if you were to program or to design the shortcut, suddenly I'm at ease. I can build this thing so when things become hectic, this is not something I have to worry about. And does shortcuts when you're on your job, are you using AI to build the bots or the tasks?
It depends on the task, because, and this is where the whole, oh my gosh, AI is going to take our jobs, doesn't worry me as much yet, because there have been times where I've tried to engage, because so the bots that I build for work are Microsoft Copilot, and you can use, it's kind of Inception, you can use Microsoft Copilot to get advice about building your own Copilot. And I remember I was having trouble with something, so I asked the Copilot, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, can you help me figure out what the problem is, like, why isn't this working correctly? And it said, because I was making an HTTP call. It was just making a kind of like the same way you type in, google.com. That's a get call. I was doing something like that, and it's like, at times, when you do something incorrect with a URL, you will get an error response. You should look up the error response to indicate what that error response. It was like the most generic help advice. It was terrible. But
Huh.
if I were building something that was all like within the Microsoft ecosystem, like say I wanted to do like every time I get an email in Outlook, I want you to add this data to a spreadsheet in Excel, right? If I was staying within the Microsoft ecosystem, I bet Copilot would have no problem generating the blocks for that in Power Automate or in Copilot. I think it's when you start to go outside of the Microsoft ecosystem that it starts to kind of fall apart.
Interesting.
Oh, but I was gonna say too, going back to the shortcuts thing, I have 2 shortcuts that live on my phone, like uh, main screen right now, and they're a lot simpler than you might think. Because, well, just like one of my rules is put information in my way, one of my rules is if I can make it so I go to the same place every time, that's what I want to do. So I have one shortcut where it's called home, and when I tap it, it gives me a list of things. The cameras for my house, the locks for my house, the security system for my house, or there's one other one, I can't remember what it is. Because when I leave, sometimes I want to like lock stuff from the car, or I want to turn on a certain camera or something. And instead of having before, what I had was, and all it does is open the app for that corresponding task. That's it. But I can go to one place, home. I want to do something for my home, and it'll give me a shortened list of options instead of trying to remember the name of the app. My garage door, that's the other thing. So it helps minimize that cognitive load, and I'm going to the same place every time. The other one is listen to. So when I get in the car, I want to listen to something. All it does is give me the options. Do you want to listen to music? Do you want to listen to an audiobook, or do you want to listen to a podcast? and it opens up the app for that specific task, so that I'm not going and looking. Because what often happens, going back to your notifications thing, is I go in search of an app and then I'm distracted seeing another app and going, oh, that's right, I wanted to buy that thing on Amazon, or I wanted to search this thing up on Safari or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in order to minimize that distraction for myself, I have these little custom apps that give me just the task that I'm trying to do.
Huh. Very
Even
cool.
the music one, I've recently refined it. It used to open the music app entirely. Now it'll just automatically play my radio station, because I will often get lost in, okay, which song should I pick? I don't want this song. I don't want that song. I don't want to listen to this playlist. Oh, this playlist is neat. Maybe I'll try this. And then I'm sitting there in my driveway for like 10 minutes not leaving because I'm messing with my radio. So to keep me on task and keep me focused, I just hit music and it starts to play my radio and I go.
Interesting. Like the two shortcuts I use the most are compile my top 25 songs this week, and it puts the top 25 so I can just listen to those songs over and over again. And the Pomodoro timers. So like, just keep me where I'm 25 minutes on, I go do some other stuff, 25 minutes back on, and once I'm finished it or whatever it is. Which is, just dope. But now, the other thing that's very interesting is I think that there have to be people on the other side of that equation who are looking at what shortcuts people have developed and utilized, and how to bring those things into the mainstream focus of the actual product. And I say that because Apple Music just rolled out essentially these are the songs that just you've been like murdering this, like you've been, and I'm like, that's essentially my top 25. So I've stopped using that shortcut because I don't need to, because the variety in that new playlist also is really dope. That they'll take songs out and they'll swap other ones in. You really get this kind of cool little variety there. So I am assuming
isn't it called the heavy rotation?
Heavy rotation, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you start to ask yourself questions. Did I listen to this song when I listened to this other song? And then I'll go back and look at the actual play, a number of times I played this song. And I'm like, oh, I think the algorithm is making some choices based on its own whatever that may not actually be verified by the number of times I've played this particular song. Because I'll look at my year in review to see where that song is ranked in my year in review. Like you get down to like a weird rabbit hole. But anyway, we got 25 minutes and we need to do the actual demo. And so we're going to do the demo now. So we're going to do I want to automate some things for my students. However, I want to do no coding, and I'm essentially going to very much push the definition of what automation is. And so, this is the premise for this particular thing. When we're talking about limiting cognitive load, one of the issues I've always had in school is that we put links everywhere. Now, if you are a learner and you're on a learning management system, on a Google Doc or whatever, and you click a link, Webbs, what generally happens when you click that link?
It opens in a new tab or a new window.
And suddenly, trying to find your way back to where you were gets a little complicated, especially if you're someone like myself that has 35,000 tabs open, right? And you have kids on little Chromebook screens, and those Chromebook screens are tiny, and suddenly they've got the way they have their different desktops and they're hiding stuff. And like, if you ever taught those who are teaching right now, you know the struggle that could be, hey, let's go back to where we were. And like Bob is like now playing Roblox on his Chromebook because he is now like checked out. So how do you keep your learners in one place so they do not leave that one place? If they do leave that one place, you know immediately that person isn't where they're supposed to be. And so we're going to use Canvas just because where we are in Las Vegas, Clark County School District, state of Nevada, Canvas is the learning management system for the state of Nevada and for Clark County School District. And so we're going to utilize Canvas to do this. And so let's check this out really quickly. Did that share? Yes, it did. All right, so here's Canvas, etc. So we are going to, again, push automation. And we're going to say automation is actually bringing the knowledge of the world into Canvas so that a student does not have to go search for those particular things. And we're going to use an AI tool to do it. We're just not going to use it in the way that you might be thinking that we're going to do it. So we're going to use a tool called Andy. Now, Andy is an AI-powered search engine. I like this because it does not require you to log in. So if we're talking about data privacy, can you go on a very quick, like, data privacy, student data privacy, kind of just like why that perhaps is important?
Yeah, I mean, once data is out there, there is no getting it back. And especially for also quick bona fides kind of situation. I was also slash am a security specialist, and had a security certification, all those fun things. So I've worked with information security professionals and people who work in information security, running infosec for companies and stuff. Um, Once that data's out there, there's no getting it back, and it's especially a high risk for kids because quite often, if their identities are stolen, they won't know about it until they turn 18 and they start to try to build credit, and then find out, oh, someone stole my identity when I was 6, and my credit is shot, and now I have to like dig myself out of this hole. So it's really important to be not only that, but general malicious actors that get possession of students' information, their first name, last name, where they go to school, their phone numbers, all that kind of contact information. It can be used to scam people, their parents, their grandparents, that kind of a thing. And especially with the way technology is going, where you can replicate someone's voice, it's just really important to be very intentional about not like first teaching your students don't provide tools like this with personally identifiable information, and to protect that personally identifiable information as much as possible. And that includes, like, it's great and convenient to log in with Google, but you want to be aware of what is being shared with that third party tool that they're signing into, because if it shares like first name, last name, all of that that's attached to their Google identity can be shared with that third party application.
Absolutely. So again, this does not require you to create an account in order to utilize it the way that we're going to utilize it. All right, so this is just a search engine, but you'll notice the telltale signs of a chatbot. And one of those telltale signs is at the very bottom, it says, Ask Andy. Wonderful. That's what I want inside of my Canvas layer, right? I want to build that inside of Canvas. I can't do that with a lot of the other AI tools, like, Perplexity won't let me embed it, anything like that. But Andy does give me that ability. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that URL, and I'm going to go over to my handy iframe generator, and I'm going to call this Andy search for Canvas. I don't really have to call it anything, but I'm going to call it that anyway. I'm going to make it 1200 and 800 so it fits in that nice window. Don't need to fool with those. I'm going to paste that link. And once I do that, I make that preview button, and I'm going to see, wonderful, there's my window. It works. Great. So if it works in preview, that means I can generate that HTML. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a page very quickly, and I'm going to call that page our search bot, just for kicks and giggles. Great. So I know a kid can navigate to that search box anytime they want, as long as they get back to this modules page. The search bot could be there. I can embed the search box on every page if I want to, so the kid never has to leave. Whatever. I'm just going to do it this way for kicks and giggles right now. So I'm going to click there, and I am going to edit this as soon as it pops up. Edit. There are two ways to inject the HTML. We have our little cloud up there. to embed, or we got the raw HTML editor. Either one is going to work. And so I'm going to paste. Once I have that, great, there it is. I can add all these things to it. I'm not. Hit the save button. And now we have inside our box, we have the ability to search the internet inside of our canvas layer. And so fundamentally, if I were to ask, explain to me what pyroclastic flow is, as if I'm a kindergarten student.
I need to know what pyroclastic flow is.
This is the reason why rap music is such a powerful thing. All music is such a powerful thing. The things that you hear. So Ice Cube talks about pyroclastic flow all the time in his songs. All the time. And you're like, all right, cool. He's saying pyroclastic flow, and you're like, okay, bet. What the devil is he talking about? Oh,
like a volcano thing.
Volcanoes, yes.
So, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The cool thing about Andy,
fire.
So the cool thing about this is, first of all, it has the websites that, the websites are built inside there. But you look at a site like National Geographic. Again, it's a site that, as we're teaching students, is National Geographic a website that we should trust? Yes, it's a geographic society. We can go into why it's trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera. I want to know about pyroclastic flow. If I click that button, it's going to send me to the website. So I still have the ability to leave the interface in order to go watch the video. I read the article, but I can read that right here. So great. I'm not leaving. I'm still getting my question answered. I can still ask it whatever other questions I would like, but I can read that article right inside here. All right, I don't have to leave. If I want to view it on there, just to make sure that Andy is not making up information, if I want to go and verify this thing, I can click that link and it'll take me back to the article, which is awesome. The other thing I can do is I can have this summarized for me. Great. That's a paragraph summary. Short on time. It's a Jeopardy question in the classroom. You asked me what pyroclastic flow was. Great. I just want to read that. Cool. That tells me the nuts and bolts of what pyroclastic flow is. And I can still go to the website to verify that that's something that's actually true. All right. Explain. It can generate an explanation for me as well. I looked at the article, explain this to me in a way that's going to be a lot simpler, not take me the TLDR, as when you first introduced that concept to me, I was like, this is brilliant. Like, I don't want to read the 7-page article. I want you to tell me the gist of what you need to do, because I've got other things to do. I got coffee to drink, right? So here's this explanation. Go ahead, Webbs.
I think this is also good modeling, because when I think about some of the skills that I use day to day, one of the big things is being able to condense down a big lengthy explanation into a very short executive summary. Like, that's an important skill to have, I think, in the corporate world. And also having discernment about, is this something I should deep dive into, or can I get just the surface level TLDR and that's plenty to help me move on to solve my bigger problem? Because when it comes to solving problems that, like I do for my job, you have to be able to tell where you need to deep dive a little more and where it should be acceptable to have kind of a surface level understanding of a given concept, so that you're not spending your time deep diving into everything and then you don't meet your deadlines.
And also, it's bringing the music snippet to me, right? Great. I really like how this sounds. Let me go read the original article, because now I'm intrigued. Now I really want to know what pyroclastic flow, and I might go down a pyroclastic flow rabbit hole. But I don't have enough time to do that right now, because right now I've got these other things that need to happen. This is enough information for me to get started on Project X or whatever, right? So I've got that there as well. Wonderful. I can get visit it. This is the other thing that's super important with the AI tools, right? So more results, similar pages. So again, we talk about similar artists. Great. Are there other places that I can go that are going to give me similar information about pyroclastic flow? It's going to go and seed those things for me, so I don't have to go look for them. So in terms of me not having to go all through the internet, or not having, we don't teach students how to Google search. We just tell them to Google search, right? And so that era of human history to me is gone. We don't need to like go into this is how you Google search, because I don't think Google searches is going to be a thing for very much longer as the principal way that we search the internet. So that being the case, this is going to bring certain things to light for me. There's a cache version, and Webs, can you explain what cache means when we're talking about the internet?
Yeah, so there's the idea of a cache. You may have heard, like, if a website isn't working correctly, clear your cache. And a cache is basically exactly that. Like, it's a place where stuff is saved. It's like a temporary memory. And so it can exist on a couple different levels. It can exist on your local machine in your local browser, like a Chrome or a Firefox. And so when you do have a problem, like maybe you're having trouble logging in, they tell you to clear your cache, so it gets rid of all of the stored information related to that web page. Often it's something called cookies. You may have heard that before, or tokens. And that's how it identifies who you are. And you don't have to log in every single time you open up the website. There's also cache, like on a higher level of like a website can have its own cache where they would need to bust their cache in order to fix a given thing. But it's basically like a snapshot in time of a given website in this case.
And then the security and privacy information. So, okay, verifying, yo, that is nationalgeographic.org and not, excuse me, someone parading as if they're nationalgeographic.org, and therefore I'm getting information that it could be poisoned or not accurate or whatever it is. All right. And so teaching our learners and teaching ourselves in the age of AI, it is important to evaluate, evaluate, and ensure that the information that we're actually generating, the outputs are actually accurate. Because, again, the internet is a vast place, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. There are some people who do not want you to have accurate information as you're making certain decisions and whatnot, and will try to befuddle you. So that is kind of the super simple. I just want essentially this tool to exist. And this is not just search. I could ask it any questions that I would like it to answer for me, and it's built into the page. That could be on every page in your canvas if you would like it. All you need to do is inject the HTML. You could change the size so it sits on the left, on the right, in the corner, whatever is clever to you. All right. We can go a little bit more interesting as well if we want to do a little bit extra work. And Webb's mentioned custom bots for custom problems. You can do that, and it's not as difficult as it would seem. All right. And so, in kind of preparing for this episode, I had to remember that way back in the day when I was, first experimenting with bots, that I did a fair number of testing products and fooling around with things and trying to figure stuff out. And so I was the webmaster for our website, and I was noticing that there were lots of questions about where we were located, what times people could do things, et cetera, et cetera. And so in 2017, which seems like so long ago, like that seems like a long time ago.
Right? 7 years ago?
Sweet Jesus. Um, I've used TARS, and this has been around since 2017 to kind of build a bot for our website. Now this is not AI. This is just me. The cool thing, Webs, you can let me know your thoughts on this. The cool thing about building the chatbot to me is really understanding, one, your problem, and two, what are the possible workflows that are necessary to go from here's my problem to here are the solutions for my problem, and really being aware of the intricacies of that particular process, because you can't do this without understanding the process. What say you, Webbs?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, designing the bot for the support team at my job, I really have to think through, like, okay, what makes the most sense? If I'm not there to answer any questions, they have to be able to do this on their own. And if I were in the classroom again, I would love to build out a bot for my students, like most commonly asked questions, for them to access. But yeah, you work your way. Actually, I designed something similar to this when I was trying to think it through in Miro, where like I had the little boxes that kind of like went through the whole flow diagram because and actually this is also something I do for my job in general is design flow diagrams for how the logic in a given product is supposed to work. Um and it really does help you recognize the very subtle small differences in certain use cases or situations. And like, okay, if I'm going to ask this question, giving them 10 choices is probably too many. So how can I group these in such a way that it limits them to like 5 choices? And if I limit them to 5 choices, what makes the most sense and what makes the most sense of like the next stage to kind of filter down the problem?
And so TARS has a free option, which is probably all you would need as a teacher. Like you don't need the executive whatever. There's a free option that would give you like 1,000 responses, something like that a month or something like that. Far if you're teaching kids, that's enough generally.
Yeah, that's more than enough.
Um, but say I want to make a bot. All right, so let's build one very quickly. Perhaps, maybe. Let's go back. All right, cool. So, the thing that we have now that's built into most bots is now TARS Prime is AI. So now I don't have to go through all the gambits and stuff, or as many of the gambits as I had to. Before it was all hand. I had to go think about, first of all, how do I limit the number of inputs so that I could predict what the outputs would be? Great. Name, school location. Well, there are buttons. You push the button, it gives you an output. Great. It's a one-to-one. I had to keep things very, very uh, Philistine in that particular way, right? Not super complicated, even though the Philistines were a very advanced civilization, which we use that term like negatively, but that's actually not accurate. Regardless, the cool thing about bots like TARS and ManyChat and things like that is I can build a knowledge base. And this is cool because if I need my learners, I'm teaching a history lesson in Nevada history, and I want them to learn all about X tribe of Native Americans or Native Nevadans. I can go and source all the information that I need off the internet. Things from the book, things that are not from the book, things that I have to do, things they're not going to have to do. They need to buy a podcast. All those resources I can source into the knowledge base from my bot to avoid me having to do that later on. We're getting very close to time, but it's all good. So I'm going to call this Nat Geo Volcano. And this is how easy this is. So I'm going to hit that create button. And when I hit that create button, you're going to see Nat Geo Volcanoes, and you're going to see this is not trained. So I'm going to click on it, and it gives me the ability to add a resource. Now, this is the cool thing about this, is that all I need to do is find the website that I want. That's not Geo. That's 6 through 12. Great. I'm going to copy this. As long as there's not a login required, I'm good. Open internet, we're fine. I'm going to paste that link inside there. Nat Geo website about volcanoes. Great. I can go advanced if I want and, deal with how much it's scraping or whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to hit that start training button. And it's going to go through that URL and it's going to learn on the URL. Now, the more information it has about the thing, the more accurate it's going to be able to tell. I mean, you definitely don't want to say the only place that you can learn about volcanoes is National Geographic. I mean, there might be new information that's out there. There might be whatever. Don't go like to Looney Tunes land and scrape like John
Webs knows
Jones's.
everything about
Yeah,
volcanoes.com.
we want to avoid that. But Nat Geo, cool. This is the places kids might go. Wonderful. I want my bot to be trained on it. Great. What
I
else
think that
might it?
might even be an interesting lesson in validity and reliability of data, of information, and how to evaluate it. Is you sit with your students and you say, we're going to add to our knowledge base for our bot. What types of websites should we add? And then give me a why or why not for that website.
So the other thing that's cool about this is I have other options, right? Airbyte, I can upload PDFs. So if there's a PDF copy of something I wanted to also learn, I can do that. Questions and answers from CSV. So if you've got a whole bunch of you worked on spreadsheets and you've got this is the question, this is the answer, I want those to be uploaded. Any tables from the CSV. Your Slack channel, things from your Google Drive, those things I stay away from because that's kind of information that could be proprietary, whatever. Open internet, I'm totally cool with. I generally stay with URLs. It will also have a situation where you could throw YouTube links inside here. Anything that's going to not require someone to log in, you're good to go. So I'm going to call this NASA volcanoes. Great, and create. Here's NASA volcanoes. I'm going to click on it, add the resource. I'm going to throw my URL in there. I mean, I think most of us trust NASA. I've heard some interesting things about people not trusting NASA recently, but we'll keep that, for another conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory
that
series.
Could be the after show. That could be the after show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, great. You see, it doesn't take very long for it to train. I just would need. Here's the topic that I'm talking about in my English course. Here's the math concept, whatever. It could be YouTube videos of you teaching that particular topic. It could be YouTube videos of someone else teaching that particular topic. It could be getting PDFs and worksheets, whatever is necessary for this bot to be able to help your learners. Because in the grand scheme of things, I've tried to clone myself in the classroom. It doesn't work very well. So one of the things that might be great to do in your classroom is, I guess one of the things, Webs, that I was afraid of, and I still am, as people are going down the AI pathway, is I'm deploying AI tools in my classroom that I have no idea what they were trained on. Mm-hmm. The thing that makes me a little bit more secure in deploying one of these bots is I'm doing some of the training. I'm making sure this is what I'm going to limit its understanding of this particular problem. And when I deploy the chat bot, it's going to be a chat bot for topic 2 in HMH, not the whole internet and not to help the kid do X, Y. It's going to be very, very centered on this one topic rather than trying to solve all the problems of the world. And we don't have time to go into the actual building of everything, but TARS has templates that are already here built into it that have some kind of samples and stuff. The education ones aren't all that great. It's kind of like Temu. Isn't that what the website's called? Temu. It's kind of Temu-ish.
It's cheap.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, look at this. It has that sheen of like, this is not very high quality, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
So I'm going to go to create one, and I'm just going to call this volcanoes because we're studying volcanoes in class. And when I hit that create button, it's going to take my bot. Now, the cool thing about the bot process here is because there is, I can do it the old-fashioned way by adding the gambits. All right, that will be the first thing. Hello, I'm Mr. Lang. We're going to learn about volcanoes. So back in the day, I would have had my chart paper out. I would have some sticky notes, and I would go through. Okay, cool. This would be the first thing said. The kid would have the option only buttons. I wouldn't have them type in buttons. Great. Tell me about this. Cool. When they push this, what's going to happen? It would take me a long time.
Yeah.
So instead of basic, I'm going to go to AI question and answer, which is prime. That's going to be my AI bot. All right, great. So we could if we build another gambit, this would override the gambit. We're not going to go through that whole thing, but we can select the knowledge bases, which is the cool thing. I want those two things. This is going to be a volcano deal. Done. Great. So it's going to base its information off of that information. I could add other stuff if I would like to, but I'm keeping it mad narrow. So the only questions and answers that are going to happen in the classroom are going to be based on the information that I'm giving it. The other thing is prompting. And if you're not someone who is dealing with prompt engineering at this particular point, you are going to have to be proficient in it, as well as your students are going to have to be proficient in this. You can utilize what they have here already kind of as a template. What kind of things you want to make sure your prompt says in this particular sense, what kind of things to avoid, all that wonderful stuff. You can also go to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your AI tool of choice is and ask it to co-create a prompt for you in this particular sense. So that would pop up. You don't have time to go through all that right now. Anyway, we can
And a
go.
prompt is really just directions.
Yes,
That's all it
absolutely.
is.
Yep.
It's just the directions for what you want the bot to do, and you write it in human language, and that's it.
And you've got which model for ChatGPT do you want to use? Now, again, different models are going to cost different amounts of tokens. So, I mean, do with that what you wish. You could also say the max amount of tokens in a particular conversation. Again, if you're set to a certain number of tokens that you have, hey, I only want it to. At a max is going to be 5 tokens, and no, after that we're not going to talk anymore or whatever. Use view source. I keep that on. I want it to, when I'm talking to it, I want you to tell me where you got that information from. Not, ta-da! This is where, suddenly I pulled this out of the ether. Nope. View source, very, very important to me. User feedback, great. It's going to help me train the bot a little bit better. Kid could say, this was very confusing. This actually didn't answer my question, whatever. Chat history, great to have as a teacher on the back end. I want to see exactly what kind of questions kids asked, what were the responses, et cetera, great. I also want to evaluate, and so you can build a data set, evaluate, I want to see all the data this was generated so that I can evaluate how accurate this particular bot was. Do I need to go back and change the prompt? Do I need to add other resources? Do I need to train it some more? Whatever, right? So let's just say this is totally not done. Great. Here's this bot. But we want to get this into our canvas, and we'll be finished here in just a second. So I'm going to publish that. And I'm going to go in, hit this distribute and share. And this is going to be not totally, it's going to make sense, but it's not going to make sense. What you would think about is, here's HTML. I'm going to take that code snippet and put it on there. It's not going to work inside of Canvas. So we're going to go back to the chatbot link, and we're going to copy that. Again, TARS is a pretty straightforward tool, which is why I like it a lot. We're going to toss this into the iframe generator. By the nature of the chatbot, it's wants to be embedded. We're just going to help it along the way. I'm going to keep it 600, 400. I'm going to generate it because I know this is going to work. I'm going to copy it. Great. And I'm going to start a new page here. Go review all pages. Great. Same deal. I'm going to inject that HTML in there. I see my bot. All right, so the bot is embedded inside there. What are the types of volcanoes? And again, it's based on that knowledge base. I didn't program it all the way through, but it's all good. It just gave me the sources. So here's the sources that it was trained on. I'd have to build the prompts out so that it would have the conversation, et cetera, et cetera. But that chatbot tool, there's a free tier for if you were a teacher. It's 1,000 responses, not super difficult to sit down if you had enough time. I may actually do a video this week of me just like going through the whole thing and just kind of show you how everything works. But this is a tool, or this is a concept that if I was a teacher in the classroom right now, it's a concept that I would like be very much invested in, avoiding having to deal with the God knows how many questions you have to answer by the end of a school day about topics. kids not being at school, right? So if I'm absent or I'm traveling or something else, if I'm not at school, if you're the teacher not at school, how can you build in processes that a kid would know how to utilize that would still have that conversational tone that would get a kid to a certain place where you gave them a task and they were very much shepherded on the road to that solution in a way that allows them a greater degree of success than if they just had to read all the information by themselves. I think that's super important. What say you, Webbs?
Yeah, I agree with that. And anytime you're using a tool like that, it opens the door for translation abilities, for screen readers. You're improving accessibility to English learners, to students that have additional needs that can't be supported by here's a worksheet, go read in the corner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we'll be back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Webbs. This show, follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook if you're not currently following us on Facebook. The TikTok channel should be in full swing this week. So follow us on TikTok. Our TikTok is at the Intelligent Hoodlums.
Correct.
So that's there. Follow us on our website as well. We'll be blogging and uploading artifacts and doing some very interesting stuff. If you're a college football fan, hopefully tomorrow there'll be a blog up about why Notre Dame's calamity yesterday, why that teaches us a lot about teacher retention, as well as Colorado's like debacle versus Nebraska yesterday as well. What we can learn about teacher retention and teacher training from those particular perspectives. And Deion Sanders, I think, is a great human. His coaching leaves much to be desired. That was a very difficult team to watch. But we're going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow. Any words for the people, Webbs, before we sign off?
No, go drink water.
Don't drink water, please. Drink like tea, drink coffee, but water is not. You know. Coffee is what water wants to be when it grows up. Remember that. We'll catch you in 2 weeks. Shout out to Belize, just because. And shout out to Jerry Reed. His birthday was a couple weeks ago. Posthumous birthday. Very, very cool dude. If you've never listened to Jerry Reed records, hop on your whatever your streaming tool of choice is and listen to Jerry Reed tonight. Again, beautiful voice. Hilarious dude as well. Lots of songs are very, very funny. They will have you like dying, cracking up. But that's what we got. We'll catch you when we catch you on the internets. For Mike and Webbs, for the Intelligent Hoodlums, have a great night.